What's up, everybody? I'm Brandon Lundberg, and we are back today to cover picks 11 through 18 in our mock draft 1.0. Now, I already went over picks 1 through 10 last week of non-NFL playoff teams. In this week, I want to go over picks 11 through 18, starting with the Minnesota Vikings at pick number 11. Now, last week, I made it a primary focus kind of on the Chicago Bears a little bit and what they might do with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And I speculated a potential trade with the Falcons, not of Justin Fields, by the way, but of their first round pick trading back with the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons getting to pick number 1 overall. Falcons ultimately choose Caleb Williams to be their franchise quarterback. Everything's going to end well. Great roster for him to join. A lot better than the Chicago Bears. He gets to play indoors. Doesn't have to worry about the cold weather, all that good stuff. I want to start where I left off. Pick number 11 for the Minnesota Vikings, and that is going to be their potential quarterback of the future. Now, let me speculate just a little bit here in really my mindset with this, because I do believe this particular quarterback could be the 3rd or 4th quarterback off the board in the 2024 NFL draft. He just declared over the weekend after Michigan's post-national championship celebration, and that is J.J. McCarthy. And the reason why I think he'd be a great fit with the Minnesota Vikings at pick number 11 is the same reason I believe he'd be a good fit just about anywhere else that has a potential veteran quarterback that could start ahead of him for a year or two. If the Vikings choose, they could retain the services of Kirk Cousins for another year or two and potentially have J.J. McCarthy sit behind him so he can learn from an actual veteran. Now, what in terms of what J.J. McCarthy brings skill set wise to this offense, I think he'd be a perfect fit in this particular offensive scheme with the play action pass game. He can get under center. He did it at Michigan. He can play from the gun. He's got the athleticism to extend plays. I think that would be tremendous. You pair him with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison in this offense, and it's an opportunity to take a guy with a high ceiling who needs maybe one more year of development. A lot of people out there are saying, hey, J.J. McCarthy, no reason to, enter the NFL draft now. He should have stayed at Michigan, play another year. But I really believe that he's kind of hit his ceiling at Michigan in terms of offensive scheme, because what Michigan's going to do, they're going to go back to the same thing that's allowed them to win or helped elevate the program, and that is the run game. And they're going to go back to that 60-40 split where they're running the football a ton. And J.J. McCarthy, he's only going to be able to show you what he can show you, which he showed us in the college football playoff, for example. And not just that, he showed it against Ohio State. He showed it in key moments in different situations in the previous year, even against Ohio State in Columbus, that this dude is capable of taking over a game and making big plays in key moments. He knows how to extend a play and make an accurate throw in a tight window. We're just not going to see it from him at Michigan consistently enough for people to just be so wowed like they were by, Michael Penix this year, for example, or the amount of throws that you see from Caleb Williams or Drake May in that type of an offense for those two quarterbacks. You would absolutely need him to transfer somewhere that would allow him to throw the football a lot more. So if he's not drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, I would expect he would be drafted by the Denver Broncos at pick 12 or even the Las Vegas Raiders at 13. Nevertheless, I don't see him getting out of the first round. The best case scenario for him is to go somewhere where he can sit behind a guy for a year or two. I mean, imagine him on the LA Rams. Imagine J.J. McCarthy, quarterback for the LA Rams, behind Matthew Stafford for a year or two. That would be so tremendous for his development. And with Sean McVay, the right kind of coach, I think stylistically, that offense matches up perfectly with what he's been doing at Michigan. And I think the Vikings can do that for him as well. So moving on, pick 12, Denver Broncos. They need interior defensive line help. So we're going to go with Illinois interior defensive lineman Jersa Newton. I think that he's a game changer. I think he's absolutely what the Denver Broncos need on the defensive front. If J.J. McCarthy's not available, if Michael Penix Jr. is not available in this spot, I imagine the Denver Broncos are going to go with a defensive player. If it's not an interior defensive lineman, it will 100% be an edge rusher or a cornerback, whichever one is tops on the board at that point in time, I imagine, for the Denver Broncos. But I think the interior of that defensive line, they can really solidify it for years to come with Jersa Newton. Now, moving on to pick number 13, we know the Raiders. They need a quarterback. They need offensive line help. They also need defensive tackle help. I'm going to go with the best available corner on the board at this point, and that's KoolAid McKenry, corner from Alabama. He's definitely got the ability to play man. He's got the ability to play zone. Super versatile player in that defensive secondary. He's going to bring what the Raiders have been missing in that secondary ultimately for the past couple years. And I think he's going to bring the right kind of attitude, the right kind of physicality to the position to really kind of be that guy who can lock down half of the field, or at least, go man to man with some of the top receivers that the Raiders are going to have to face during the season to really open things up for this Raiders defense and whoever their head coach is going to be, whether that's going to be Jim Harbaugh, whether that's going to be Antonio Pierce, whether it's going to be Bill Belichick, who knows? I don't know who the Raiders are targeting outside of that off the top of my head. Maybe it's Mike Vrabel. We'll see how this sort of shakes out, but that's my pick for the Raiders at pick 13. At pick 14, we got the New Orleans Saints. They need offensive line help. They need an edge rusher. I'm going to go with offensive tackle Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. Strong run blocker, solid in pass protection. You're solidifying a need and a potential 10-year player at a position of need on the offensive line. I feel like you could flip him inside as well as a rookie to play guard, and he'll just ultimately have an effect right away. So you don't have to wait a year to really get him out there. You can fill a hole in your offensive line right away. Now, the Indianapolis Colts at pick number 15, they've got needs at receiver, interior defensive line, edge rusher, corner, linebacker, you name it, they need it. Cooper DeJean is my pick here, corner from Iowa. Super versatile player, can play a ton of zone. Now, I've watched the Colts throughout the years. They're ultimately one of the best teams I've seen year in and year out in creating turnovers and in creating opportunities, getting the football back for their offense. I think Cooper DeJean just brings that type of attitude. He'd be a perfect fit in that Indianapolis Colts organization. And Cooper DeJean, in my opinion, might be the top corner in this draft class overall. It's really a toss-up. And our grading in the system actually has Cooper DeJean as a top 5 player overall in this draft. So super versatile player. If you want him to return punts, he can return punts for you. Heck, if you wanted to throw him in on offense, I don't know why Iowa didn't give that a shot. All right, moving on to pick number 16, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Ton of needs here. Now, pick number 16 is interesting because, they do have Geno Smith, right? I don't have quarterback listed as a need here, but if one were to fall, I think the Seattle Seahawks would be the perfect fit for, guess who? Say it again, J.J. McCarthy. If McCarthy makes it this far, or if Michael Penix Jr. slides this far, Seattle should 100% roll the dice and do that. And then you've got Geno Smith up front ahead of that guy for a year or two so that they can develop. But for pick number 16 in this particular mock draft, since J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix are both off the board, I'm taking edge rusher Jared Verse from Florida State. Verse, obviously, he's a multifaceted edge rusher. I really believe that they could add him to this defense and he can help elevate this defense. It's a position of need. You've already got a good secondary in place. Get that edge rusher on the defense, a guy who can also stop the run as well. He's just a versatile athlete, and I think that he could be that guy for the next, 8 to 10 years on that defensive front for the Seattle Seahawks moving forward. Pick number 17, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Got another edge rusher out there. If the Seahawks don't take Jared Verse or Dallas Turner, it's going to be either or, I think, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going with Dallas Turner here from Alabama. Another versatile edge rusher, just a flat-out athlete, a dude who can win with power, a dude who can win with speed off the edge of the defense. I think he'd be a perfect fit in this Jacksonville Jaguar defense. He reminds me a lot of he's another prototype similar to a Hassan Reddick. He's a guy that you can just plug in and he'll have an impact from the very beginning of his career and moving forward. Now, for the final pick here of the non-playoff teams, in my mock draft 1.0, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals. Potential needs at wide receiver. Obvious need, on offensive line consistently, I feel like every single year. They've done a good job in free agency, though. I imagine they're probably going to continue to do it that way since they've had some good success in free agency. But I'm going offensive tackle J.C. Latham out of Alabama. You can plug him in at right tackle. You can put him at left tackle. I think he'll start his career on the right side potentially, but he's also a guy that you could potentially flip into a guard spot to fill a need as well early in his career. You solidify your offensive line and you continue to work on protecting your best asset, which is Joe Burrow. You got to keep that guy upright. He's been injured quite a few times already early in his career. Got to do the best you can to protect him. Okay, so that is picks 11 through 18 of my mock draft 1.0. Again, I did picks 1 through 10 last week. Next week, I'll do an entirely different mock draft 1.1 of non-NFL playoff teams. Maybe I'll add in some of the playoff losers in here and kind of debate who they should potentially draft and where. And moving forward, I may even add some additional rounds to the mock draft. Maybe I do a round 2 mock draft at some point to kind of discuss needs there. Maybe I just do a couple of teams at a time or one team at a time and go over their entire draft strategy here and there. Nevertheless, let me know what you think in the comments section. Let me know who you would pick if any of picks 11 through 18 are your favorite teams. Who would you rather have outside of who I picked for picks 11 through 18? Let me know in the comments section. Again, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more NFL draft content.